Have you ever imagined that something sitting quietly on your kitchen table could change the future of electric cars, renewable energy, and the entire battery industry? It sounds impossible. For more than 30 years, the world believed lithium was the only answer. Every smartphone, every laptop, almost every electric vehicle, and nearly every large battery storage system relied on one element: lithium. It became the foundation of the clean energy revolution. But today, something unexpected is happening. A battery made from one of the most common materials on Earth is challenging lithium for the first time. Not a rare metal. Not an expensive new invention. Just sodium. The same element found in ordinary table salt. Even more surprising, one company recently received an order for 60 gigawatt-hours of sodium-ion batteries, the largest order of its kind in history. To understand how enormous that number really is, imagine charging every smartphone on Earth at exactly the same time. That's roughly the amount of energy we're talking about. Just a few years ago, most experts believed sodium batteries would never become commercially successful. Today, governments, automakers, and energy companies are racing to develop them. So what changed? Why did the world suddenly start paying attention to a technology that had been ignored for decades? And could a simple ingredient from your kitchen replace one of the most important materials in modern technology? Let's find out. To understand why sodium batteries are creating so much excitement, we first need to understand how lithium became king. Before lithium-ion batteries arrived in the early 1990s, portable electronics were very different from what we know today. Mobile phones were large and heavy. Laptop computers were thick, bulky, and often lasted only a few hours before needing another charge. Video cameras required massive battery packs that drained quickly. Portable electronics existed, but they were far from convenient. The biggest problem wasn't the electronics themselves. It was the batteries. Older battery technologies stored very little energy while taking up a lot of space. They were heavy. They charged slowly. And they didn't last very long. Engineers knew something better was needed. Then came lithium-ion technology. It completely changed everything. Compared to previous batteries, lithium could store far more energy while weighing much less. That single breakthrough allowed electronic devices to become smaller, lighter, and much more powerful. Suddenly, phones could fit comfortably inside your pocket. Laptops became thin enough to carry everywhere. Wireless headphones became possible. Electric vehicles stopped looking like science experiments and became real products people actually wanted to buy. It's difficult to imagine modern life without lithium batteries. From smartwatches and drones to electric bicycles and electric cars, nearly everything rechargeable depends on them. But why is lithium so special? The answer comes down to chemistry. Lithium is one of the lightest elements in the entire periodic table. Because each lithium atom weighs so little, engineers can pack enormous amounts of energy into a relatively small battery. That's why your smartphone battery can power the device all day while fitting inside something only a few millimeters thick. Lithium also releases electricity very efficiently. When a battery powers your phone or your car, lithium ions move rapidly between two sides of the battery. That movement creates electrical energy. Because lithium atoms are both small and lightweight, they can move quickly and repeatedly with relatively little damage. The result is a battery that delivers excellent performance. For decades, no competing technology came close. Once lithium proved itself, the world invested heavily. Battery factories appeared everywhere. Mining operations expanded. Car manufacturers redesigned their future around lithium-powered vehicles. Governments invested billions of dollars into supply chains. Researchers spent years improving the same chemistry. Every improvement made lithium even stronger. The battery became cheaper, safer, longer lasting, more efficient. With every passing year, confidence in lithium grew. Soon, almost nobody was seriously looking for alternatives. Why would they? Lithium was working. Electric vehicles were becoming more popular. Renewable energy storage was growing rapidly. Battery costs were falling. Everything seemed to be moving in exactly the right direction. History has shown us something interesting. Whenever one technology dominates for a very long time, people stop asking whether something even better might exist. They become comfortable. Investment follows the leader. New ideas receive less attention. Alternative technologies slowly disappear from the conversation. And that's exactly what happened here. For years, almost the entire battery industry focused on improving lithium instead of replacing it. Researchers continued making small improvements. Manufacturers built larger factories. Governments secured mining contracts. It looked like lithium would remain the world's dominant battery forever. But beneath that success, hidden beneath billions of successful batteries, Several serious problems were quietly growing. At first, they didn't seem important. Engineers believed they could solve them. Some problems became smaller over time. Others became much larger. Then something happened that reminded the entire world that even the best technology has weaknesses. In 2016, Samsung released one of the most anticipated smartphones ever made. The Galaxy Note 7 received outstanding reviews. Millions of customers rushed to buy it. Everything seemed perfect, until reports began appearing online. Some phones were overheating. Others caught fire while charging. Some exploded inside cars. Others ignited on bedside tables during the night. One incident after another spread across the world. Airlines eventually banned passengers from carrying the phone on board aircraft. Samsung recalled millions of devices. The financial damage reached billions of dollars. Most people believed Samsung had simply built a faulty battery. And yes, the company did make engineering mistakes. But there was another story that received much less attention. The danger wasn't unique to Samsung. It existed inside every lithium-ion battery ever produced. The liquid electrolyte inside most lithium batteries is highly flammable. If a battery is damaged, overcharged, manufactured incorrectly, or becomes excessively hot, that liquid can ignite. Once one battery cell catches fire, temperatures rise extremely quickly. Nearby cells heat up. Then they ignite too. Within seconds, the entire battery pack can experience what's known as thermal runaway. It's essentially a chain reaction. Each burning cell heats the next one. The process accelerates faster than cooling systems can stop it. Although engineers have made lithium batteries much safer over the years, the underlying chemistry hasn't changed. The risk still exists. Most batteries operate safely throughout their entire lives. But when failures do happen, the consequences can be dramatic. Fire isn't lithium's only weakness. Cold weather creates another major challenge. Anyone living in countries with harsh winters has probably noticed this. As temperatures fall below freezing, lithium batteries become less efficient. The chemical reactions inside the battery slow down. Electric vehicles lose driving range. Phones run out of power more quickly. Charging also becomes slower. In extremely cold conditions, tiny metallic structures called dendrites can begin forming inside the battery during charging. Think of them as microscopic needles. If enough of these structures grow, they can eventually create an internal short circuit. Heat becomes the problem. For electric vehicle owners in places like Canada, Norway, or northern China, winter isn't just uncomfortable. It can reduce driving range significantly. Imagine starting your day expecting your car to travel 500 kilometers, only to discover cold weather has reduced that number dramatically. Suddenly, planning a long journey becomes much more difficult. For years, manufacturers tried improving battery management software. They developed better cooling systems, smarter heating systems, more advanced charging controls. These improvements certainly helped, but they never completely solved the underlying limitations of lithium chemistry. Then another problem appeared, and this one had nothing to do with science. It had everything to do with money. Between 2020 and 2022, lithium prices skyrocketed. The cost of key lithium materials increased several times over in an incredibly short period. Battery manufacturers struggled. Car companies watched production costs explode. Governments worried about energy security. Then, almost as quickly as prices had risen, they crashed. Within a year, lithium prices fell dramatically again. Such massive swings created uncertainty across the entire industry. How could companies plan for the future when one of their most important raw materials changed price so unpredictably? Suddenly, manufacturers started asking a question they hadn't seriously considered for years. What if there was another option? What if an alternative battery chemistry already existed, waiting quietly in the background? As it turns out, it did. And its story actually began decades before lithium ever dominated the world. That unexpected journey starts with one of the most common elements on Earth: sodium.
For most people, sodium is nothing special. It's found in seawater. It's found in rocks. It's found in ordinary table salt sitting on your kitchen shelf. There is so much of it on Earth that scientists have never worried about running out. That raises an obvious question. If sodium is so cheap and so abundant, why didn't the world build sodium batteries from the beginning? The answer takes us back more than 60 years. Long before lithium batteries powered smartphones and electric vehicles, researchers were already experimenting with sodium. In fact, one of the earliest rechargeable high-energy batteries developed during the 1960s actually used sodium instead of lithium. At the time, scientists were excited. The chemistry showed real promise. The raw material was incredibly cheap. Unlike lithium, sodium wasn't concentrated in only a handful of countries. It seemed like the perfect ingredient for the future. But there was one enormous problem. Those early sodium batteries only worked at temperatures close to 300 degrees Celsius. That's hot enough to melt lead. Imagine needing to heat your car battery to several hundred degrees before driving to work. Obviously, that wasn't practical. So researchers continued searching for better solutions. Then, in the early 1970s, everything changed. A British chemist named Stanley Whittingham made an important breakthrough. He demonstrated that lithium could work inside a rechargeable battery at normal room temperature. That single discovery completely transformed battery research. Enormous problem. Those early sodium batteries only worked at temperatures close to 300 degrees Celsius. That's hot enough to melt lead. Imagine needing to heat your car battery to several hundred degrees before driving to work. Obviously, that wasn't practical. So researchers continued searching for better solutions. Then, in the early 1970s, everything changed. A British chemist named Stanley Whittingham made an important breakthrough. He demonstrated that lithium could work inside a rechargeable battery at normal room temperature. That single discovery completely transformed battery research. Suddenly, lithium wasn't just slightly better. It was dramatically more practical. Researchers around the world shifted their attention almost overnight. Universities redirected funding. Governments increased investment. Private companies rushed to develop commercial products. Then came another historic moment. In 1991, Sony introduced the world's first commercial lithium-ion battery. The timing couldn't have been better. Portable electronics were becoming more popular. Consumers wanted lighter devices. Manufacturers wanted longer battery life. Lithium delivered both. Within a few years, it became the global standard. From that moment forward, nearly every major battery company focused almost entirely on improving lithium technology. Over the following decades, the world invested hundreds of billions of dollars into lithium research, mining, manufacturing, and supply chains. Eventually, that investment grew into trillions. Factories expanded across Asia. Mining operations increased across Australia, South America, and other regions. Entire industries formed around lithium. Meanwhile, sodium slowly disappeared from the conversation. Not because scientists proved it was a bad technology. Not because it couldn't work. But because almost nobody had a reason to keep investing in it. When one technology becomes successful enough, alternatives often struggle to attract attention. That's exactly what happened. Yet hidden inside laboratories around the world, a small group of researchers refused to give up. They knew sodium still had one enormous advantage. It was everywhere. Unlike lithium, there was no shortage. No complicated mining operations. No dependence on a few countries controlling global supply. The material itself wasn't the problem. The problem was making it work. Scientists eventually discovered the biggest obstacle. Sodium atoms are much larger than lithium atoms. That might sound like a small detail. But inside a battery, size changes everything. Think of a battery like a giant apartment building. Each apartment represents a tiny space where charged particles temporarily live while the battery stores energy. Lithium atoms are very small. They move easily into those spaces. They move back out again when electricity is needed. This happens thousands of times throughout the battery's life. Sodium atoms, however, are much larger. Trying to force them into the same spaces is like trying to squeeze oversized furniture through a narrow doorway. Every movement creates stress. Over time, the structure begins breaking apart. That was exactly the problem scientists faced. The carbon material used inside lithium batteries is called graphite. Under a microscope, graphite looks incredibly organized. Imagine a perfectly stacked pile of paper. Each sheet is evenly spaced. Lithium atoms slide neatly between those layers. Back and forth. Again and again. Very little damage occurs. Sodium couldn't do that. Every time sodium tried entering those narrow spaces, it pushed the layers apart. The structure slowly became damaged. Eventually, the battery lost its ability to store energy efficiently. After only a limited number of charging cycles, performance dropped dramatically. That single problem frustrated researchers for more than 40 years. Every few years, someone announced a possible solution. New scientific papers appeared. Laboratory experiments showed promise. Then another obstacle appeared. Commercial success always seemed just out of reach. Many experts quietly concluded that sodium batteries simply weren't practical. Lithium looked unbeatable. Research funding became harder to obtain. Some scientists moved on to different projects. Others continued searching. And then, around the year 2000, something unexpected happened. Researchers in Canada discovered a completely different type of carbon material. At first glance, it looked almost messy. Nothing like the perfectly organized graphite used in lithium batteries. Instead of smooth, evenly stacked layers, this new material contained countless tiny gaps, small pockets, irregular spaces. Its internal structure looked almost chaotic. Scientists called it hard carbon. At first, the discovery didn't attract much attention, but when researchers examined it more closely, they realized something remarkable. Those irregular spaces were actually large enough to hold sodium atoms. Instead of forcing oversized atoms into tiny openings, hard carbon gave sodium room to move freely. Imagine replacing a narrow hallway with a large open room. Suddenly, movement becomes easy. The battery no longer destroys itself every time it charges. For the first time in decades, scientists had found a material that could finally unlock sodium's potential. It was a breakthrough, but only inside the laboratory. Turning a scientific discovery into a commercial battery is an entirely different challenge. Many technologies work beautifully in research labs. Very few survive large-scale manufacturing. Hard carbon created its own problems. Its complicated internal structure behaved almost like a sponge. It absorbed moisture from the surrounding air. That might not sound serious, but inside a battery, even tiny amounts of water create major problems. Moisture reacts with the battery's electrolyte. Small chemical reactions begin producing unwanted gases. Pressure slowly builds inside the battery. Performance declines. Eventually, the battery can fail completely. Scientists could carefully control humidity inside a laboratory. But manufacturing millions of battery cells every year? That required an entirely different level of engineering. Companies would need to redesign production methods, develop new materials, improve quality control, invest enormous amounts of money. Most battery manufacturers looked at those challenges and decided it wasn't worth the risk. Lithium factories were already producing millions of batteries. Why gamble on an unproven technology? For years, sodium remained trapped between scientific promise and commercial reality. Researchers had solved one of the biggest problems, but manufacturing still seemed too expensive, too complicated, too uncertain. Then one company made a decision that surprised the entire battery industry. Instead of following everyone else, it chose to bet billions of dollars on sodium. That company was CATL. Already the world's largest battery manufacturer, CATL believed sodium's story wasn't over. In fact, they believed it was only just beginning. And what happened next would completely change how the world viewed sodium batteries forever. The announcement caught almost everyone by surprise. For years, the battery industry had been obsessed with one goal: build a better lithium battery. Manufacturers competed to increase driving range, charge batteries faster, reduce costs, and improve safety. Very few people were talking about sodium anymore. Then CATL made a move that changed the conversation overnight. As the world's largest battery manufacturer, supplying batteries to many of the biggest electric vehicle brands, CATL wasn't a small startup experimenting in a laboratory. It was an industry giant. When a company of that size invests billions into a new technology, people pay attention. The company had spent years quietly researching sodium-ion batteries. Its engineers believed that the biggest challenges could finally be solved using modern materials, advanced manufacturing techniques, and smarter battery management systems. In 2021, CATL officially introduced its first generation of sodium-ion batteries. Many experts were curious. Others were skeptical. Some believed this was simply a backup technology that would never compete with lithium. But CATL wasn't finished. Behind the scenes, engineers continued improving every part of the battery. The chemistry, the manufacturing process, the charging speed, the energy density, the lifespan. Every year the technology became better. Then came another major breakthrough. CATL unveiled a new generation of sodium-ion batteries designed not just for laboratories, but for real-world transportation and large-scale energy storage. The company announced battery systems that could operate reliably in extremely cold weather, charge rapidly, and maintain high levels of safety. One of the biggest advantages immediately stood out: cold temperatures. Anyone who owns an electric vehicle in a cold climate knows the frustration. As winter arrives, battery performance often drops. Driving range becomes shorter. Charging takes longer. Drivers sometimes lose 20 to 30% of their normal range simply because temperatures have fallen below freezing. This happens because lithium batteries rely on chemical reactions that slow down in cold weather. Sodium behaves differently. Its chemical properties allow the battery to continue operating efficiently even when temperatures fall far below zero. Laboratory tests showed that sodium-ion batteries could continue functioning at temperatures as low as -40 degrees Celsius. That's colder than many places on Earth ever experience. Imagine an electric bus operating during a Canadian winter, or delivery vehicles driving across northern Europe, or trucks transporting goods through the mountains of northern China. Instead of struggling with freezing temperatures, sodium batteries remain far more stable. For countries with long winters, this is a significant advantage. But cold weather wasn't the only improvement. Charging speed also became impressive. Modern sodium-ion batteries can accept high charging currents without suffering the same level of stress experienced by many traditional batteries. That means shorter charging times. For commercial vehicles, where every minute matters, faster charging can translate directly into higher productivity. A delivery truck spending less time at a charging station spends more time transporting goods. The same applies to buses, taxis, and logistics fleets. Then comes another important benefit: safety. Unlike conventional lithium-ion batteries, sodium-ion batteries are far less likely to experience thermal runaway. Earlier in this documentary, we discussed how thermal runaway far less likely to experience thermal runaway. Earlier in this documentary, we discussed how thermal runaway can occur when excessive heat triggers a chain reaction inside a lithium battery. Because sodium-ion batteries use different chemistry, that risk is significantly reduced. Manufacturers have demonstrated batteries being punctured, crushed, bent, and exposed to harsh testing conditions without catching fire. No battery is completely risk-free. But reducing fire hazards makes a tremendous difference, especially for electric vehicles and large energy storage facilities. Imagine a warehouse storing thousands of battery packs, or an apartment building with underground electric vehicle charging. Improving battery safety becomes just as important as improving battery performance. Perhaps the biggest surprise, however, is cost. Lithium is relatively rare. Mining it requires significant investment. Processing it requires complex industrial facilities. Global supply chains depend on a limited number of producing regions. Sodium is completely different. It exists almost everywhere. It can be extracted from seawater. It is abundant in common minerals. The raw material itself costs only a fraction of lithium. For battery manufacturers, lower material costs could eventually mean lower battery prices. And battery prices matter. Today, the battery remains one of the most expensive parts of an electric vehicle. Reducing battery costs could make electric cars affordable for millions more people around the world. It could also lower the cost of storing renewable energy generated by wind farms and solar power stations. As renewable electricity continues expanding globally, affordable storage becomes increasingly important. After all, the wind doesn't always blow. The sun doesn't always shine. Reliable batteries allow clean energy generated during the day to power homes and businesses long after sunset. That is one of sodium's greatest opportunities. Many experts believe sodium-ion batteries may become especially valuable for stationary energy storage. Unlike electric cars, where every kilogram matters, large battery farms don't require the absolute highest energy density. Instead, they prioritize safety, long lifespan, low cost, and reliability. These are exactly the areas where sodium-ion technology performs well. Imagine an enormous solar farm producing excess electricity during the afternoon. Instead of wasting that energy, giant sodium battery systems store it until evening. As families return home and electricity demand increases, the stored energy flows back into the grid. The result is a more stable power system with greater use of renewable energy. For governments trying to reduce carbon emissions while maintaining reliable electricity, this technology could become incredibly valuable. Of course, sodium batteries still face limitations. Despite all the progress, lithium continues holding one major advantage: energy density. Simply put, lithium batteries can still store more energy within the same size and weight. That matters enormously for long-range electric vehicles. Imagine two batteries of identical size. One stores enough electricity to travel 600 kilometers. The other stores enough for 450. Most drivers would naturally choose the longer range. This is why lithium is unlikely to disappear anytime soon. Instead, experts increasingly believe the future will involve both technologies working together. Lithium will continue powering applications where maximum energy density is essential. Premium electric vehicles, high-performance electronics, aircraft, advanced robotics. Meanwhile, sodium may dominate areas where affordability, safety, and cold weather performance are more important. Electric buses, city delivery vehicles, grid-scale storage, backup power systems, industrial equipment. Rather than replacing lithium, sodium could become its perfect partner. Some battery manufacturers are already developing hybrid battery packs that combine both chemistries. The idea is simple. Use lithium where high energy is needed. Use sodium where stability and lower cost provide greater value. It's a strategy that could deliver the best of both worlds. And perhaps that's the biggest lesson from this story. Technological revolutions rarely happen because one invention completely destroys another. More often, new technologies expand the possibilities. Steam engines didn't completely eliminate sailing ships overnight. Cars didn't immediately replace horses. Renewable energy hasn't completely replaced fossil fuels. Instead, change happens gradually. Each technology finds the role where it performs best. Sodium batteries appear to be following the same path. For decades, they remained hidden in research laboratories. Today, they are entering factories. Tomorrow, they may become part of everyday life. The question is no longer whether sodium batteries work. They clearly do. The real question is how large a role they will play in the world's energy future. And judging by recent investments, industry leaders seem to believe that role could become much bigger than anyone imagined just a few years ago. But even if sodium succeeds, one final question remains. Will it truly change the battery industry? Or is an even bigger revolution already waiting just around the corner? That's exactly what we'll explore next. So, where does all of this leave the future of batteries? If you asked that question just 10 years ago, almost every expert would have given you the same answer. Lithium will dominate for decades. Today, the answer is far more complicated. For the first time in a generation, the battery industry is no longer relying on a single technology. Instead, we're entering an era where different batteries will serve different purposes. And that's exactly how most successful technologies evolve. Think about transportation. We don't use one vehicle for every job. Motorcycles are perfect for crowded cities. Pickup trucks carry heavy equipment. Cargo ships transport thousands of containers. Airplanes move people across continents. Each vehicle exists because it solves a different problem. The same future may be waiting for batteries. Lithium batteries aren't disappearing. In fact, demand for lithium is expected to remain incredibly strong for years to come. Premium electric vehicles, long-range trucks, smartphones, laptops, drones, medical equipment, and even satellites will continue depending on lithium's exceptional energy density. When every gram matters, lithium remains difficult to beat. But not every battery needs maximum range. Take a city bus, for example. Most buses follow the same route every day. They return to the same charging station every night. They don't need to travel 800 kilometers on a single charge. Instead, operators care about something else. Low operating costs, high safety, long service life, reliable performance during hot summers and freezing winters. These are exactly the areas where sodium-ion batteries begin to shine. The same is true for delivery vans, garbage trucks, construction equipment, warehouse vehicles, forklifts, airport service vehicles, and many forms of public transportation. These machines travel predictable distances every day. Lower battery costs could save companies millions of dollars over time. Then there's another market that may become even bigger: renewable energy storage. Around the world, countries are installing solar panels and wind turbines at record speed. That's excellent news for reducing emissions. But renewable energy has one major weakness. It doesn't produce electricity on demand. Solar panels stop generating power after sunset. Wind turbines slow down when the air becomes calm. Unfortunately, people don't stop using electricity just because the weather changes. Factories continue operating. Hospitals never close. Homes still need lighting, heating, and air conditioning. Electricity demand continues 24 hours a day. That's why energy storage is becoming one of the most important industries on Earth. Imagine a giant solar farm producing more electricity than anyone needs during a bright summer afternoon. Without batteries, much of that energy could be wasted. With enough storage capacity, however, that electricity can be saved and used hours later. Entire neighborhoods can continue running on clean energy long after the sun disappears below the horizon. This is where sodium batteries may become game changers. Large battery storage stations don't need to fit inside a smartphone or a family car. Space isn't nearly as important. Instead, operators focus on cost, safety, reliability, and lifespan. If sodium batteries can provide those advantages at a lower price, they could become ideal for utility-scale energy storage. Some analysts believe this market alone could be worth hundreds of billions of dollars over the coming decades. And governments are paying close attention. China has already invested heavily in sodium-ion battery research and manufacturing. Several pilot projects are now testing large-scale energy storage systems using sodium technology. Chinese battery manufacturers are rapidly expanding production capacity, hoping to lower costs through mass manufacturing. But China isn't alone. Researchers in Europe are developing new sodium battery materials. American companies are investing in alternative battery chemistries. Japan and South Korea continue exploring advanced energy storage technologies. Around the world, competition is accelerating. No country wants to depend entirely on imported lithium if another reliable solution becomes available. Diversifying battery technology has become both an economic and strategic priority. Of course, every new technology faces challenges. Scaling laboratory success into millions of commercial batteries is never easy. Factories must be built. Supply chains must be established. Engineers must improve manufacturing consistency. Automakers must test reliability under real-world conditions. Governments must create safety standards. Consumers must gain confidence. All of this takes time. That's why experts believe sodium batteries won't replace lithium overnight. Instead, adoption will happen gradually, year by year, application by application, industry by industry. And that's perfectly normal. Every major technological revolution follows a similar path. At first, people ignore it. Then they doubt it. Then they underestimate it. Finally, they wonder how they ever lived without it. Whether sodium follows exactly that journey remains to be seen. But one thing is already clear. It has moved far beyond the laboratory. Real factories are producing real batteries. Real vehicles are beginning to use them. Real companies are investing billions of dollars. That alone marks one of the biggest shifts the battery industry has seen in decades. Perhaps the most exciting part isn't what sodium batteries can do today. It's what scientists may discover tomorrow. Researchers are already experimenting with improved hard carbon materials, new electrolytes, better cathodes, faster charging methods, longer lifespans, higher energy density. Each improvement brings sodium one step closer to competing directly with technologies that once seemed impossible to challenge. And battery innovation doesn't stop there. Scientists are also exploring solid-state batteries, lithium-sulfur batteries, metal-air batteries, flow batteries, and entirely new chemistries that are still confined to research laboratories. No one knows which technology will dominate 20 years from now. History teaches us that today's breakthrough often becomes tomorrow's starting point. The important lesson isn't that lithium is failing, nor is it that sodium has already won. The real story is much bigger. Human innovation never stands still. Whenever the world faces rising demand, limited resources, or new challenges, engineers begin searching for better solutions. Sometimes those solutions come from revolutionary new discoveries. Other times, they come from ideas that were quietly waiting for decades until technology finally caught up. Sodium batteries are a perfect example. For more than 40 years, they remained in the shadow of lithium. Most people had never heard of them. Many believed they had no future. Today, they are becoming one of the most talked about technologies in the global energy industry. Will they completely replace lithium? Probably not. Will they become an important part of the world's clean energy transition? Many experts now believe the answer is yes. The future of batteries may not belong to one chemistry alone. It may belong to a combination of technologies, each solving different problems in different ways. And perhaps that's exactly what the world needs. Not one perfect battery, but the right battery for every challenge. The race to build the future of energy is far from over. In many ways, it's only just beginning. So what do you think? Could sodium-ion batteries become the next big revolution in electric vehicles and renewable energy? Or will lithium continue to dominate for decades to come? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear your opinion. If you enjoyed this documentary and want to explore more fascinating stories about breakthrough technologies, engineering marvels, mega projects, and the innovations shaping our future, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next video.